All right. So I have I have been writing and publishing for 30 plus years. And in that time I have co-written many books, stories, other things with other people. Some of them I've loved, a couple of them not so much. But that's how you learn if you're compatible with another author, right? So, first off, I'm not going to be able to name everybody I've ever co-written with. To be honest with you, there's a couple that I've co-written with that we've never released what we've written, or we've never finished what we were writing for various reasons. There's a couple that I've written with. Um, there's one that I wrote with that he immediately dropped off the face of the earth after the book was done, and I got us a publishing contract for that book. That one is still a little annoys me because he did no promotion on or anything. The book tanked, and that was just really annoying. Um, I won't name that person. You know who you are. Some of the people that I've written with that I love, Jay Wilburn, the late great Jay Wilburn. I wrote several books with him. I believe five. One of them has never been published. I'm looking for a publisher for it, and a couple of them are no longer in print. So if you're a publisher and you want some Jay Wilburn stuff, let me know. I wrote a phenomenal, strange trilogy with Frank J. Edler called the Shocker trilogy. It's our love of horror, our love of stupid, our love of weird, and I definitely our love of heavy metal. Both of us growing up in New Jersey. Phenomenal trilogy. Um, yeah, that's a good one. Tom Duffy and I have written. We're on our fourth trilogy. We're writing together. Fourth. We're working on the second book now as I'm recording this. Hopefully, we'll get the second and third book done. So Tom Duffy and I have written a bunch of stuff. Who else have I written with? Also with Jay Wilburn, I wrote a trilogy called Hellmouth Trilogy with Jack Wallen and Brent Abel, and those were fun horror books that we wrote. Who else did I write with? There's a bunch of people. Bunch of. I know I'm forgetting some obvious ones. I'm currently writing a post-apocalyptic romance with a romance author, and she's kind of doing all the romance parts, and I'm doing a bunch of the post-apocalyptic stuff. So that's being worked on. I know I'm forgetting like a couple of big ones. I've written a lot over the years. I've written a lot of stories and a lot of books with other authors. So check out my Amazon page. I'll put it in the description and then go through and go, oh, you also wrote with whoever. So all of that being said, oh, Chuck Buddha, what the? I can't believe me and Chuck Buddha. He wrote some stories for the Keyport Cthulhu books, but then we wrote In the Marrow, which was a Western horror book that we wrote together. Can't believe I almost forgot Chuck. Sorry, Chuck. So a lot of people always say, well, you've written with so many different people, and there's a couple, like I said in the beginning, there's a couple that I was not having fun writing with them. Are not that our writing styles were different, but our personalities were just too different. So my general thing is like if I go, hey, if somebody comes to me and goes, hey, I want to write something, I'm like, you know what? Let's write something together. You take the lead. This is your idea. It's kind of like old school pro wrestling. The heel always basically talks you through the match. That's the way it is. Oh, that's the way it used to be. For me, it's your idea. You take the lead on this, okay? That usually means you write the first chapter. You come up with the concept, whatever. I don't want an outline. I've written with people who have tried to write now. I'm a pantser. I don't want an outline. I don't want to feel like we've already written the story. Then just go away and write the story yourself. So for me, it's let's just we have a concept, we have an idea, we're creating some characters as we go along. Let's just write this thing and have some fun doing it. And the excitement is, what is the other person writing in their chapter? And then what can I do to change this up? What can I do to make this story better? And that for me usually is the concept, because like for with Jay Wilburn, we're writing back and forth chapters. I mean, at times we might write an extra chapter or whatever, but usually I'm reading his chapter and I'm like, wow, I would have never thought of that. That's a great idea. That's a great concept. What what can I do in this next chapter to make this book even better? And that was the challenge. What I wrote with Frank Edler, it was like, okay, he just wrote the strangest chapter about, Chris Holmes, the guitar player from the band Wasp, flying on a giant wasp. Where do you go from there? Where do you go from there? So for me, it's that, but it's also authors that I normally like. I like their work. I've read um, probably most of the authors I've written with. I've read their books and I like their books. I like their stories and I like their style. They're not too different from the way that I write. I consider myself a pulp fiction writer. So I'm not going to be using big words. I'm not going to give you chapter, 5,000 word chapters about the inside of a house. I'm not writing Stephen King stuff. I'm just writing pulp fiction. Here's the story. Boom. Least amount of words possible kind of thing. I did start a book with an author who writes is a lot more wordy and a lot more aware of the words that they use to write. And so I did not. I don't even think we finished that book. There's another author that we had a really good idea, and we wrote a book and we started a second book, and then personal stuff happened for both of us, and we never got back to that. That was supposed to be a trilogy. So there's still an entire book that is written. I had an author that I wrote uh, two or three things with, a couple books together, and then we had a personal falling out. He ended up being a jerk, and so we never worked together again. I had another author that I did a trilogy with that we could have done a lot more books. We were doing really well with it, but again, it was a falling out, personal stuff that should have never happened, but they did. That's all I'm going to say about that. Some of you already know who I'm talking about. Don't ask because I'm not going to tell you. If you know, you know. If you don't know, you don't know. Also, with we wrote stories. I guess not co-writing, but we wrote the Beers and Fears, what became a trilogy, and those were basically short stories. First two books were the stories were kind of interconnecting with the previous story, but to just sit down and go, hey, so like Tom Duffy, for instance, Tom was like, hey, I want to write. I want to write a heist novel. And I'm like, so do I. And I'm like, let's write it together. And he was like, all right. And then we just started writing the Johnny Bell, what became a trilogy. We're like, let's write a book. And we ended up writing 3 books. Then we wrote 3 more. Then we were like, then he was like, what, I want to write a private eye book. I'm like, well, let's do it. So he wrote a trilogy. Then we wrote a second. We're writing a second trilogy. So for me, it's knowing, okay, this is your idea, so you take the lead. This is my idea, so I'm going to take the lead. And we're going to figure out, are we going to get a publisher for this? Are we going to pitch it somewhere? Are we going to self-publish it? A lot of them are just, let's just self-publish it. And we'll figure out, it's your lead, so you spend the money, and then, all kinds of things you need to realize. Because a lot of times I see authors that have co-written something, and then they've had a falling out, and then it's like, well, what are we going to do with this project now? Because I think it's mine, you think it's yours. And so it's kind of a, hey, I'm going to publish it or you're going to publish it. We're going to know ahead of time. If you're publishing it, then you're going to spend the money on the editing. You're going to spend the money on the cover design. You're going to spend the money on formatting. You're gonna load it up into Amazon and whatnot, and you're going to keep track of the money coming in. If it's mine, if I came up with the idea, then I do all that. So like Tom and I, the first trilogy he put out in his publishing. The second one I put out under my publishing. So we're self-publishing those books, but they are, the two of us are still doing it together. Both of our names are on the covers. And writing a 60,000 word book with somebody means you only got to write 30,000 words. So, I mean, there's also that you can get more writing in, as long as your co-writer writes fast. Jay Wilburn was phenomenal. Jay Wilburn, we would knock out at least a chapter a day, and a lot of times he would write it in the morning. I would write it later on in the day, and then we would just keep doing that, and then we knocked out several books. Jay was also really, really meticulous when it came to the editing and stuff. And so that second pass was usually Jay going through and going, hey, you screwed up this, and this, and I changed it, that kind of thing. So that was always good too. Whenever we send these books to the editor, I always say to her, yeah, so my chapter, you'll know which my chapters are because they are written perfectly. The other person, that's where you're going to have some problems. Usually it's a couple times stuff I've written, they were like, who wrote this? This is not in this book. And I'm like, yeah, I got a little carried away. I went a little bit too much on that one. That's my bad. I'm sorry. But I have to like the person. To co-write something with somebody, you have to enjoy writing with that person. You have to also like the way that they write, the way that they think. Do they think exactly like me? No, which is good because there's twists and there's different things in there that I'm like, oh, I did not see that coming. Not that I'm always like, oh, I'm going to write the cliche and whatever the idea should be. I always try to think of something different, but they're thinking of something completely different that even I didn't think of. And I like that. There's most of these are a lot more twists and a lot of different weird characters that I normally maybe wouldn't write. And so I think that for me, that's really an important thing. It's fun to write with other people. Will I write with other people in the future? I guess it's got to be somebody that I like. And let's just be honest here for a second. When I started doing this and when I started writing with other people, because I like their writing, because I like them, because I was, I think we could write a good story, which is most of the time we did. Now, after doing this for so long and doing this full time, this will be my 14th or 15th year as a full-time author. It gets to the point where I'm like, what's the ROI? What's the return on investment for me? There's one thing of, hey, I'm going to help somebody brand new in the business, or somebody who doesn't have as many books or doesn't have as many sales or as many readers or whatever. That's all nice and good, but this is a business, and I need to look and go, what are the things up on my board that I can still work on that are going to make me money, because that's what it is. I'm writing stuff I want to write, but I'm also looking at monetarily, is this going to make me any money? And so that's kind of the way I'm approaching this, and I've been approaching this for a while. And I'll have a video coming out the next couple of weeks, basically about my goals for 2026 and beyond. And one of those is going to be really seriously looking at the financial part of all of this. That's going to be a big thing. And am I going to write with other authors? I don't know. I know me and Tom have a book and a half left, maybe less than a book and a half left. I don't know if we're going to do another trilogy after that. I don't know. I don't know where his mind is after we do this. Have sales been great of any of these? No. Be honest with you, no. I was expecting a lot more, especially since we're writing crime fiction. I was expecting a lot better and bigger sales. So that's not great. Um, and there's other stuff that I want to work on, but priority stuff, which I'll get to in another video. So yeah, I mean that's basically the bottom line. I mean, a lot of people are like, oh, I don't think I could write with somebody else. You might not be able to. If you are micromanaging everything, which I've worked with a person or two that micromanaged everything, and every word that I wrote, they went back and changed and on the stop that. So I'm not going to work. I wouldn't work with those people again, and I don't think those people should be writing with other people. I've had people where they're like, "Oh, I'll give you the idea, and you write it, and then we'll split it." And I'm like, "No, we're equal partners. We're equal writing this thing. I don't want your outline, and then I'm going to write the story. Then you just write the damn story." There you go. So that basically, in a nutshell, is how I co-write with others. It's simple. I read a chapter, you write the next chapter. I read your chapter, I write the next chapter. We kind of get to the point where we're like, all right, this is gonna end. We're into the third act here. Where are we going with this? Most of my crime fiction and thrillers are 50 chapters long, which gives me about 63,000 words. So figure out the math on that. Tom fell right into that right away, and we started hitting those numbers. So it's easy now. I know. Hey, we're getting to chapter 50. This is the last chapter of this thing. So it's fun switching up and doing these together. So that's it. That's how I do it. If you want to write a book with me, I don't know. I'm a little busy. I'll be a little busy next year, but we'll figure it out. And then I'll drop my Amazon. Check out all my Amazon stuff as well. And then I'm sure you'll see some people that I've written with that I haven't mentioned, and you'll be like, well, what about this? Yeah, don't ask any more questions. If you have any questions about co-writing, let me know. If you have any questions about anything writing wise, let me know. I would love to do a follow-up video. I would love to answer any other questions about writing, publishing that you might have. I don't know. I don't have all the answers. I have a lot of stuff that I did wrong, which sometimes that's also good to know what you did wrong. And yeah, and also do me a favor on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. It'll take you 2 seconds. Watch a couple of videos. I'm trying to build this YouTube up to kind of offset the money that I'm not making in writing that I used to make, to be honest with you. So yeah, I mean, give me a pity follow. I don't care. Just hit the subscribe button. All right, every Sunday, hopefully, I will put out another writing video with different ideas about my career, writing in general, and all of that. So thank you for hanging out with me for this time.